On today's show, KB and I are going to take characters from across the pop culture spectrum and pit them against each other in a giant versus battle. Unfortunately, there were some audio issues at the beginning of the podcast that will hopefully be cleared up by the end. So join us, will you, as we have a brainstorming battle on this episode of Free Your Geek.
By the power of Grayskull, Autobots, roll out.
Morphin' time! Cool.
You have failed this city.
Winter is coming.
Star-Lord.
Finish him. Hadouken! Fatality.
And welcome to Free Your Geek. I am your host, Jay Free.
Alongside KB.
KB, what's up? We have a weird show. Not a weird, but like a different show than we typically do.
Try to get creative. I'm excited.
I agree. Why don't we talk about what's the plan for the show today?
So we are basically going to be talking about verses. And what we mean by verses is like one character versus another. Not necessarily a fist fight, not necessarily combat, but basically comparing similar characters and kind of saying who's better. And we're going to be doing that just saying, so-and-so versus so-and-so. So,
it's a lot of so's.
Yeah. So, there we go. But anyway, so, you see these things on YouTube all the time, this superhero versus this superhero, because they're not in the same universes and things like that. But we're going to take it a step further, really, and kind of just make it outside of all platforms and say, TV,
so
movies.
It won't necessarily be Marvel versus DC. We're going to incorporate pretty much all of pop culture.
Pop culture references, yes.
Yeah, just two characters from pop culture going against each other. And KB kind of came up with the idea. We did something similar way back in the day. And the Don actually kind of brought this up too because he wanted me to pose a question to the listeners of Free Your Geek. Who would win in a fight, Batman versus Batman?
Batman.
Thanks, KB. But essentially,
Bruce Wayne.
No, that's his secret identity. But no, theoretically, if the same Batman were to fight each other, being the master strategist.
How do we know it's not the Batman beyond Batman? You just said Batman versus Batman.
True, but I think what Don meant when he explained it to me is if we had Batman and then we had the exact same Batman fighting each other, who would win? Which Batman would win? If it was the same strategic mind, if it was the same, like with the preparation, who would win? I think it would be a stalemate. I don't think we'd ever have a winner. They'd fight forever.
No.
But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about characters that we think would have either, as KB mentioned, cool battle, whether it be on the mental plane, the astral plane, whether it be a physical battle, or whether
what they are.
Yeah, what they are. So we were going to do a countdown, but we kind of figured this would be the entire show, so we don't necessarily need to do a countdown.
And I also want to point out we're not advocating for one side or the other in these verses. We are kind of just. I mean, we can say, yes, we like this one better than the other one, but ultimately it's up to you.
Right. So,
listener.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to vote for some of these matches that we have, I actually came up, we were only going to do 5 apiece, but me being me, I came up with 10.
Jay goes crazy.
So we're going to just do 5 honorable mentions real quick, and I want to get KB's idea, starting with the battle that I call the Skirmish of the Sorcerers.
Okay.
I gave a name to each of these battles.
You got cute little names for them all.
Doctor Strange, specifically speaking, the Marvel Cinematic Universe version, versus Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat.
That's a good one. Good way to start. That's a good one.
The Sorcerer Supreme versus the Warlock who can shapeshift. I just think, again, if the special effects, just the spells that they both be casting, what Strange has led up to the endgame version of Doctor Strange, the Infinity War, where he's had a couple of years under his belt to be the Sorcerer Supreme, versus Shang Tsung, this ancient power, the Mortal Kombat, the Earth realm versus all the different worldly realms. Like, he's had that experience. Yeah. We've seen Strange already fight off against Dormammu.
The Time Stone, use of the Time Stone.
He's already fought one of the big bads of theoretically of Earth realm. What if he fought somebody outside of Earth realm?
Yeah, that would be a good question. But isn't that kind of what Mortal Kombat's always kind of based on too, right? Like you have, characters coming from other realms for Mortal Kombat. So I don't think I'd give it to Doctor Strange.
I think I don't know. I think if it's Infinity War version where he's got all that experience under his belt, I don't know. I think he's gone toe to toe with Thanos.
Yeah.
I think he might be able to survive Shang Tsung. But you think
Shang Tsung, like the shape shifting thing and all that, and just the pure brutality of what Mortal Kombat is. I don't know if Doctor Strange can handle that.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait till we see the new Mortal Kombat movie that's about to come out. Well, not about to come out, but that's in production, which is supposed to be rated R, by the way.
That'll be good because
So-
they bombed on those tries.
Yeah,
in
and
the
they said
past.
it's going to have fatalities in them, so that'll be kind of cool. I'm curious to see the story on that. Moving on,
Yep,
my next
excellent.
honorable mention is called the Powerhouse Melee.
Okay.
I picked, to me, the two strongest women in Marvel and DC.
Okay.
Rogue versus Wonder Woman. Rogue with her flight, invulnerability, and power-stealing mutant ability versus Wonder Woman, her invulnerability, her flight, her last.
Yeah, I would have picked Captain Marvel, but I think
I feel like Captain Marvel would be a little bit too much of a powerhouse to take on Wonder Woman.
Okay. No, that's fair. That's
I'm
a fair
thinking from a
statement.
physical strength standpoint, from an invulnerability
Yep.
standpoint. I think if they're just slugging it out, they're hitting each other in the face with all their might.
Yeah.
They both, we saw in the, if we use Batman versus
Mhm.
Superman or even the Wonder Woman movie as a
Guideline.
kind of guideline. She took a punch from Doomsday and just kind of smiled. So imagine Rogue with her super strength, with her power sapping ability. Would that be able to work on an Amazonian woman?
I don't know. It's a
We
good
don't
question.
know. Those are the questions
So,
that are out there. I think that'd be a cool battle to see.
That's why these are great things to discuss because it's what ifs. It's taking the what if ideas that Marvel did and just bringing them up to a different level. So yeah, I like that one. That's a good one.
My next one is called the Killer Clash. This one I pitted. This is another Marvel versus DC. I chose a vigilante known for killing in the Red Hood versus an assassin for hire in Bullseye.
Oh,
Imagine the two of them fighting each other on the rooftops of either Gotham or New York City.
The speed and the tossing, the accuracy and the. Now you didn't think to use not Deathstroke.
Deadshot.
Deadshot.
Deadshot. No, I feel like Deadshot versus I feel like almost like
because I would have went Deadshot versus Bullseye.
And I agree. I can understand that, but I was thinking more along the lines of if we have this assassin, we have this vigilante who wants to fight crime, but think of it like almost like the Punisher. If I were to do that, I'd do the Punisher versus Deadshot or something along those lines.
Okay. Yeah, I got you. That one would be fun to see in a theater. I'd have a blast watching that on screen.
My next honorable mention, this one's a little bit more outside the box, and I didn't do one character versus another. I did a grouping of characters versus each other. I call this one the Space Smackdown. Han Solo, Lando Calrissian, and Chewie.
Oh, that's why you tell me you were teaming them up.
Versus Star-Lord, Rocket, and Groot.
That is a good one.
How fun would it be just to see, first of all, Han Solo and Star-Lord going, or even Han Solo and Rocket, they're back and forth with that. They could have with each other.
So you think it would be Lando and Star-Lord?
Yeah, I think it would be Lando and Star-Lord.
So. The attitudes
Han and Rocket.
And I don't know. I think.
And then just hearing Chewie and Groot like, "Oh, I am Groot. Oh, I am Groot." Like I think that'd be hilarious. That's the worst Wookiee impersonation that you'll ever hear.
Yeah, but no, I think like with Groot though, in his power to transform around things like we saw in Guardians, he makes the ball and what interesting ways would he use that to restrain Chewbacca and Chewbacca just breaking it open.
I wouldn't even want to see him battle. I just want to see them interact with each other.
They're just sitting there watching the others.
Yeah, kind of like we talked about Infinity War when Iron Man and Spider-Man and Doctor Strange meet the Guardians.
Yep.
Just the interaction where they don't know each other, and it's that in and of itself is entertaining. But to put Han Solo and Lando versus even Rocket and Star-Lord, they bicker amongst
Lando
themselves.
and Star-Lord in a dance-off.
Oh my God, that'd be hilarious. Colt 45.
That's a good one. I like that. We got one more honorable mention?
I got one more honorable mention.
We get down to brass tacks.
This one goes from the Arkham games.
Okay.
The Riddler from the Arkham games.
Yep.
Think about the House of Horrors, the traps that he sets for everything.
Yep.
Versus the Jigsaw Killer from Saw.
It's funny because when you said that was the first thing I thought. Imagine the traps. I'm like, oh, Jigsaw.
I call that battle the meeting of the maniacal minds.
That's a good one.
Imagine and not even a battle, who could come up with the most deadly trap where the Riddler
Or game. Just
or
the game.
the Riddler uses deceit and you need to use your cunning versus, something with Jigsaw where it's more about kind of bearing your soul and having to put yourself through pain to get out of one of his games or traps versus the Riddler more using your mind.
See, now, Batman versus Jigsaw.
That would be kind of cool.
Right?
Well, Batman not versus Jigsaw in a fight, but Batman trapped in one of Jigsaw's traps.
Exactly.
That would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, so see, we spun one off of one.
Yeah, there you go. But again,
that's why this is fun to talk about.
You can let your imagination run wild.
That's what it's all about.
But now we're going to go into our top 5. KB, start off with your number 5.
I'm going to come out on fire.
Okay.
Spawn
Yeah.
versus Ghost Rider.
Interesting.
Right?
Very interesting.
Right? They're very similar.
Which version of Ghost Rider?
Johnny Blaze.
Okay.
Go with the original, Johnny Blaze. They're both kind of attached to hell. They both have sacrificed to get back. They both are, let's face it, they're kind of on borrowed time because the Ghost Rider spirit, what's the Ghost Rider spirit called? He has a name.
Well, I know it's the Spirit of Vengeance. I don't know.
Yeah, there's an actual name for the Spirit of Vengeance. I forgot what it was. But anyway, it's like they just... Imagine these two guys battling. The chains, the flames, the energy that comes from Spawn, Spawn and his regenerative abilities. And Spawn can do a lot more than just, the chains and the energy. He also has his ability as a soldier from when he was alive. So there's just so much to Spawn and Ghost Rider that I just think, seeing those two clash, the Battle of the Hellions or whatever, I think that would be great. I would love to see, a crossover comic or something.
Or to your point, I could see even a fan-made short, just some of the
exactly.
Special effects you could do.
Yeah, somebody who's good with effects. Yeah.
Oh my God, that could be amazing.
Yeah, it could be. So that's the first one.
I can't remember since I'm not a huge Spawn fan. What's his weapon of choice?
Well, his cloak and his chains, really.
So doesn't Ghost Rider use chains as well?
Yes.
So imagine just seeing them both, Ghost Rider with the Hellfire, the chains.
And Spawn can shoot green energy. And he can regenerate, and he's a walking corpse, and one's a skeleton.
Now here's the question: what if Ghost Rider uses his penance stare at Spawn? What happens?
I don't know if it has any effect. It might not have any effect.
That's an interesting question.
So it's an interesting topic. So why don't we move on to your first one?
My number 5, I aptly name this, and I don't mean this as a slight to anybody, but I call this the Rip-Off Rumble.
Okay.
So I'm going to give a few ideas or suggestions, or some examples rather. Namor, the Submariner, came out before Aquaman was created.
Yep.
However, Darkseid came out before Thanos.
Okay.
Green Arrow came out before Hawkeye. So these are all similar characters, but the one I want to focus on is Deathstroke the Terminator from DC versus Deadpool from Marvel.
Ooh.
So think about it. So Deadpool, essentially, for lack of a better term, even though he's his own character now, was essentially a ripoff of Deathstroke the Terminator. You have Slade Wilson.
Yep.
Now it's Wade Wilson.
Okay.
And basically, Deadpool was officially designed to look like Deathstroke, and then they just inverted a lot of the colors. Then it went through a couple different iterations. And then we had
swords more than guns.
Right. And Deadpool that we know today is a lot different than the Deadpool that came out in the comic books. Yeah. So, they did a lot more breaking of the fourth wall now, and a lot more, it's more of a fan, almost like a fan-friendly. It's more of a, kind of like a Wolverine, like a fan favorite, like a Harley Quinn. They're doing this to a lot of these comic book characters, but initially starting off...
Deadpool floods the market sometimes.
He does, but he started off as a mercenary, and then they made him a little bit more humorous, the merc with the mouth, and then it just became...
Mercs for hire.
And then it just became a merchandising gold mine, so that's why. But he started off as... basically a knockoff on Deathstroke, and I'd just be kind of cool to see somebody uber serious like Deathstroke fight somebody that's totally not serious as in Deadpool.
And you got Deadpool's regenerative factor too.
Right.
You got to take into that.
So imagine Deathstroke just continuing killing him and
keeps
hurting him, and it just keeps getting better, and he keeps making these little quippy comments that make you want to punch yourself in the face with his Deadpool, and that's what he does. He annoys you. How long would it go before Deathstroke just says, to hell with it, I give up, I don't care anymore, I'm leaving? I think that'd be kind of fun.
That would be fun. I like that one.
So that's my number 5.
Well, I thought we weren't counting these down, but
I'm just making sure so I keep track.
Okay. So my next one is going to be My comedy one. Remember I told you there's a comedy one? I'm calling this one The Battle of Alien Antics.
Alien Antics. Okay.
E.T.
Ooh.
versus Alf.
Oh, Alf all day. First of all,
Really?
Alf all day. He comes from the planet Melmac.
They eat cats.
Eats cats, which reminds me of my favorite Alf joke, which if my cousin John is listening, hey, cat on a hot tin roof. A Melmac TV dinner. Ha! That's the worst impression.
Yeah.
So far, 2 bad impressions, all with creatures with fur.
But if you think about their status as 80s icons, they're kind of equal. E.T. maybe a little more, even though it's just the one movie.
I think E.T. would be like. Are we talking about them? How are we talking about them? Are they battling each other? Or are they just interacting? What are we doing?
Just interacting. Just their characters, what they've meant to pop culture too.
I think. Well, E.T. is very, very passive. He's very almost timid in a way.
Yeah, and he doesn't really speak.
Right.
Alf has all the one-liners.
Right.
Alf is quicker. You see him. He had the TV show for like 4 series. Merchandising-wise, they probably both killed it.
You know what I could see? A buddy cop movie with E.T. and Alf.
That would be
just like kind of like going or like just driving around space and getting themselves in all kinds of hijinks. Where E.T. is like the timid, like, oh, I'm the goody, and Alf is the one that gets them.
They crash into Sesame Street or something.
Oh man,
See, the mind can just roll with this stuff. So yeah, so that was mine there. That was my comedy one because I thought that was a good one.
Well, I don't really have any comedy stuff.
Oh, you said you did.
I think
you took it off your list.
I think I took it off my list. I think I think my comedy would have been Han Solo, Lando, and Chewie.
Jay Free had way more than 10. He had to cut it.
Yeah,
down.
I had about like 17. My next one though, I call this. This is another one. This is a 4-person battle. I call this the Battle of the Badass Woman.
Okay.
We have Black Widow from the Avengers versus Trinity from the Matrix versus Ripley from Alien versus Sarah Connor from Terminator.
I feel like those should be 2 separate battles.
I know. I couldn't decide. I couldn't decide.
Like a Royal Rumble of the 4.
It started as Black Widow versus Trinity, but I'm like, I got to show love for Sarah Connor.
But Trinity in the real world's kind of useless, right?
But maybe it doesn't take. Maybe it doesn't take place in the.
Maybe it takes place in the Matrix.
Or maybe everybody's in the Matrix and she's the only one removed from it. And
maybe we're in the Matrix right now.
You don't know. So I'm thinking, like, what if the whole Terminator thing is just a program of the Matrix?
It's a great concept. This
like,
is why I love
and
these
then Black
things.
Widow, all the aliens, maybe the aliens that invaded the Chitauri, they have, mortal enemies of the aliens from Alien, and then that brings Ripley into the whole front. You don't know. There's so many ways you can integrate all these 4 characters, and they're all such badass, like strong women.
If you're telling me in the Matrix, then I have to give it to Trinity.
Of course, that's if in this, but you just mix all of them up together. I mean, Trinity, before she
Ripley's smart enough to figure out the Matrix, probably.
Right, and then you have somebody like Sarah Connor, who's just a survivor,
yeah,
and who's fought 2 Terminators in her time.
Black Widow doesn't need the Matrix,
and Black Widow's just badass, and she's got her widow bite, and she's got her. There's just so much you can do, and I could see theoretically think of even in Civil War, the Winter Soldier running around, or even the Winter Soldier when Black Widow's chasing him and they're fighting, and just the stuff she can do, and imagine that instead of the Winter Soldier, put Trinity in there, put Sarah Connor in that role as the Winter Soldier, or something along those lines, where it's just like another badass skilled fighter versus the Black Widow. Then you throw in the other 2, however you want to mix and match. They're all proficient with weapons and guns. And firearms and explosives. They're all very skilled with that. It'd be very interesting to see how that would pan out. And I just think it'd be a cool fight.
That is a good one. And like I said, I mean, can you imagine watching that battle?
That'd be amazing. It'd go on for hours.
It would be. So that's your recent one. So my next one, gonna be a little tough because a lot of people don't know one of the characters I'm talking about. But when I compare it to the other character, you'll relate, I think. So basically, we've all saw Game of Thrones end.
Yes.
And we saw Cersei Lannister, and Cersei Lannister being this evil. So basically, it's the battle of the villainous women, so to speak.
Okay. The vile,
villainous women. Okay. So Cersei is we've seen she's heartless and she's cold and she's does anything she can to win. Definitely no real fear, right? Aside from losing her children, honestly.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So you can argue with that. You can argue she's a bit of a psycho, sociopath. Well, you want to say sociopath?
We could, yeah. I'd agree with that.
Yeah, okay.
I concur.
Okay. So now there's an Australian show that's on Netflix called Wentworth. It's about a female prison. It's what Orange is the New Black should have been. Okay. It was done by Showtime Australia, and it's on season 7. So basically, it's a woman's prison in Australia. It runs a little bit differently. It's a little more open, kind of like Orange is the New Black. The main villain in this show her name is Joan Ferguson, and she's the warden of the prison. And she's such a psychopath, and she's socio-psycho. She's all of it. So brutal in just wanting pure power. Has no emotion. Like Cersei, she has emotion for her kids. She has that thing that can melt her heart. This woman has no heart. And she just wants to maintain her position and her power over all these women. And to put it lightly, there's been articles about her written saying that she is the most villainous person ever on television because of what she does. She's manipulative. She doesn't care about anybody, really, just the outcome of her plans. Now I know a lot of people aren't going to watch it, so I'm going to kind of spoil it a little bit and say, even from the grave, she still seems like she's haunting these people. That's how deep her vileness runs. Like, people on the show, like, who actually killed her and know that she should be dead are still like, oh my god, did she set all this up? And like, so she's one of those characters that you can see, like Cersei, the planning, the plotting, you get what I'm saying? But just so much more vicious because she doesn't have that compassion for anybody or anything. The actress Pamela Rabe that plays her is phenomenal, and she's a very tall, I think she's like 5'11", 6 feet tall woman who has that demeanor that they were saying that even in real life, people are kind of like afraid of her and took him back by her because of the character on the show. So I think she's a much, much better villain than Cersei. That's my opinion. But if you want to check it out, like, check out the show, and if you get hooked on it, make your own comparison.
And how can they check out the show?
Netflix.
Netflix. Give them the name of the show.
Wentworth
on Netflix.
Yep. And it's got 6 seasons, so there's plenty to watch.
How long do each episode?
It's a 45-minute hour kind of deal.
And how many episodes per season? Is it like a 10, or is it like?
I think it's a bit more, probably like the 12. I think. I don't remember. It's been so long since I watched it. But a great show. I think you'd actually like it too.
I'd have to check it out.
But yeah, so check that out. And season 7's filming now in Australia, I think. So it's coming back again, and this is after that character's demise. So
that is a very interesting pick. I think I'm going to have to, for those fans that have seen Wentworth, give us your thoughts, because I've seen
new to check out.
Or check it out if KB sold it to you.
If you like it, great. If not, no harm, no foul.
Excellent. Now that was you. You got 2 left after this?
I got 2 left after that.
You got 2 left. I got 3 left. But before we crack my top 3, we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we'll start with my top 3 and move down to number 1.
Sounds good.
Be right back.
Hey guys, be sure to check out 4041media.com. That's 4041media.com, as it is a collection of podcasts throughout the New England region. In addition to the great podcast that we host, For Your Geek, you can also check out the cast of characters at Movie Theater Time Machine, where the month of July they're reviewing films for Detective Month, including their most recent episode, Double Indemnity. Or if you're more into the crime scene, check out the Psych Your Crime podcast, where their most recent episode details a doctor moving from hospital to hospital, killing patients along the way. So check out those great podcasts, as well as Free Your Geek, at 4041media.com. That's 4041media.com. 4041 Media, by listeners, for listeners. And if you happen to be fellow wrestling geeks, check out the Bottom Line Wrestling Cast, hosted by friends and former guests of the podcast, Mike Prue and JV. Every week, they're going to take you through the career of one of the greatest professional wrestlers in history, Stone Cold Steve Austin, covering the build-up to each of his pay-per-view wrestling matches. So check out the Bottom Line Wrestling Cast. And that's the bottom line, because Jay Free said so. and welcome back to the Free Your Geek podcast. Now, hopefully devoid of any audio issues, I am your host, Jay Free.
KB, back at you.
Okay, I think we fixed the audio. We realized that we recorded the first half of this podcast through the computer microphone as opposed to our microphones hooked up to our mixer. That's on me. But hopefully for the second half of this show, we're all set to go.
It's on Windows updates, isn't it?
Yeah, it's basically because of Windows. I took an update to my laptop and it messed up the settings. But we're back. Yeah. We're back. Okay, let's try to go into crack my top 3.
Yeah, don't take blame for something that's not your fault.
Well, it's kind of my fault. I should have double checked.
All right.
We know for next time. Okay, cracking my top 3. I call this particular battle the lethal encounter. So earlier I mentioned the rip-off Rumble with Deathstroke versus Deadpool. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about another superhero group that was kind of created as a parody. But this battle is Elektra and the Hand versus Shredder and the Foot.
I had a feeling you were going to pull Ninja Turtles into this at some point.
Well, you realize that
those are two of your favorite things.
It is, but the Ninja Turtles I grew up on that, but the Ninja Turtles started out as a spoof or as a parody of Daredevil.
Yep.
So instead of Stick, you had Splinter. Instead of the Hand, you had the Foot. Yeah. But it's grown into such this like cultural phenomenon. Yeah. Like, why couldn't we see the Hand versus the Foot and then the heads of both?
Would you want to see that animated or live?
Ooh, not the Jennifer Garner version of Elektra.
Of course not.
I would want a more
like the Netflix version.
Maybe not even her. Maybe I'd want more of a true to comic version versus like Shredder. I think that'd be really, really good. Or maybe we would want to do animated, but I think for just the capabilities for the stunts and for the physicality, I would love to see a live action. Just imagine just you hire a bunch of people that are skilled at martial arts and kung fu and whatnot, and just put them under masks for the hand and under masks for the foot.
Shredder versus Elektra.
And Shredder just they're fighting on a rooftop in New York City. You can watch you can even kind of pan out to see like Daredevil and the Turtles racing their way to stop him or something like that. I just think it'd be kind of cool. I just
crossover.
Think it'd be really, really cool.
You think you'd ever see something like that? I mean, we saw Batman Ninja Turtles.
True, and then you could kind of go into the fact that the mutagen is what made Daredevil lose his sight, because that's how it was written in the comics when the Ninja Turtles. I believe the first comic that came out, when they showed the origin, it showed TCRI, the canister bouncing and hitting a kid in the face before smashing and falling. So,
the Turtles.
And again, with it being a spoof off Daredevil, I think that was implied to be Matt Murdock.
I think it's like they intended a spoof and it just became an alternate reality of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that would be fantastic. I would definitely love to see that.
So yeah, that was the one my brainchild, and that's only number 3.
Your brain has got a lot of time. A lot of time on its hands. So we're down to the last 2, right? So numero 2 for me. This one will be interesting for people that watched both shows. Both shows very, very popular, very famous. One being The Walking Dead, and the other being Sons of Anarchy. So this is the battle of I don't know what I want to call it. The fearless leaders, so to speak. On one end we have Rick Grimes. On the other end we have Jax Teller, leader of the Sons of Anarchy. Both of these guys have tragic stories, right? If we think of Rick Grimes' zombie apocalypse, kind of just woke up one day, right? And that's the world that he's in. Jax Teller, his father ran the motorcycle club of Sons of Anarchy. He started it. His father was killed, and it's the only life that he knows. And if you think about like what both of these guys go through, if you watch both shows, and you think about the end game, their moral values, and their sacrifice, they would probably get along perfectly. So my thing here is who's the better leader. So Rick Grimes has let's just think about what happened to Rick. He had woke up in a hospital, zombie apocalypse, right? Best friend sleeps with wife. Possibly his kid may not be.
Oh, it's Shane's kid. It's
right?
Shane's kid.
But let's just leave it at that. And then his wife dies giving birth, right? And then he loses his son, Carl. We're going off the show. We're not going off comics.
Yeah, I was going to say comics. I think it's even more tragic.
Yeah. So, and you think of the extremes that Rick has gone through. When he kind of lost it. remember Herschel saying to him, Rick, you can find your way back because of some of the things, like when he was it the ear he ripped off, he bit somebody's ear off, right? When they were attacking Carl. So things like that, and just his battles with Negan, his relentless motivation for his ideals, for what the New World should be. Jax Teller, his father was killed by his stepfather, we find out, and his mother. His mother also ends up killing his wife. So, and in the end, Jax Teller makes an ultimate sacrifice. Like Rick Grimes makes an ultimate sacrifice. And, the reason is the same. It's for the life to go on. In Rick's case, it was, I want to do this because it's the right thing to do. It's going to save everybody, and people will, his hope for the new world that he was building. Jax Teller, it's about his children. He has 2 sons, and in the end, realizing that his lifestyle, if he doesn't end his own life, his lifestyle will catch up with his children because that's how he became that way. So they both make these sacrifices at the end out of the heart and person that they are. Both courageous leaders, both dynamic, both think on their feet, both can talk through something, both can battle, both can fight, both have the backs of their people, both think ahead of the game. It would be a toss-up for me. Obviously they're 2 different environments, but if you take the actual leadership skills and the people that they are, it would be a toss-up for me. So that's my number 2, so to speak.
That's your almost your top battle that you'd like to see. So Jax, I don't watch Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah, so this show's over.
He's got 2 sons.
Yes, he's got 2
Are
sons.
they the Sons of Anarchy? That was my horrible joke.
But that's kind of the thing. It's like, his father created it, right? And then his sons, would be a part of this.
Those are the sons. Those are the literal sons of anarchy.
By sacrificing himself, he gets his kids away from the life.
Interesting. And what did you call that battle? The battle of the fearless
leaders?
Which is interesting because my number 2 is called The Fearless Fight.
Okay.
And it happens to include 2 of not my main favorite Marvel hero, but my second favorite hero in the Marvel Universe, as well as my favorite DC hero. This is Daredevil versus Nightwing.
Ooh.
I'm just thinking the acrobatics involved, the ability. Like, I was thinking about doing Gambit versus Nightwing because Gambit's my absolute favorite.
It doesn't have the same
But
appeal.
I think Daredevil, I can just see them running around on the rooftops, Nightwing, using, the grappling hook, the grappling gun, and Daredevil swinging using the grappling hook from his cane and just swinging throughout like the buildings of New York or Gotham and just like fighting each other on the rooftops. It could be like raining and you can see like, the raindrops hitting the puddles on the roof, and then you see Daredevil splash down on it and start running after Nightwing, and Nightwing doing flips and Daredevil just being able to keep up with him. I still think that acrobatically speaking, Nightwing has the edge just barely, but I think with Daredevil's heightened senses, it would make it more of a fair fight if they were going after each other.
I think it would be pretty even. That's one of those things that can be going on while we're watching the foot versus the hand.
Right. So that's kind of where I'm going with that.
Okay, so my number 1 is going to go on a galactic scale.
Ooh.
Battle of the Planet Eaters.
So we know it's Galactus.
Yep, Galactus is 1. I know Jay Free wasn't into Transformers, but they are a huge product of the 80s.
Yep.
Unicron is a similar concept to Galactus. Unicron is a transformer that is a whole planet. And he literally, when he devours a planet, he literally has like these like claws on like this big mouth in front of it and just like sucks in and grabs it and pulls everything in. And when it transforms, it looks even more like Galactus. I could see, Galactus being a character that, invokes fear. But when you see Unicron transform, his character looks so much more evil. And his planet, when he transforms into a planet, it just looks, it's terrifying. Imagine another planet coming to eat our planet. Versus like, okay, yeah, there's this tall, giant being beating on it. So I think that the Unicron Galactus fight, I think, would be something for the ages. I could see, them being kind of like the same height. I don't want to say similar power sets, but they have all these various powers. I haven't read a ton of Galactus. Maybe Jay Free can fill in on Galactus a little bit. What have you read of Galactus?
I'm not into the.
You just know what you've kind of seen of
Fantastic Four.
Yeah, the basics.
The Watcher interferes, doesn't want Galactus to devour the planet, helps, and all that fun stuff.
But Galactus, in all essence, is like one of the first beings of the universe in the Marvel universe, and has various powers. And it's the same thing for Unicron. So these two were giant titans that would just go at it and totally destroy each other, and I just be an epic battle for the ages. So that's my top one. I really would love to see that.
Well, my top is that's a very good pick. Very good. I would be interested in seeing that myself. And you mentioned Transformers, which I'm not, to be quite frank, I'm not as familiar with.
Yep.
But do you know that the Transformer line was actually kind of tied in or was somewhat related to another line in the 80s? Do you know what other line that would be? Another action figure line?
I want to say G.I. Joe.
Correct. So my number one,
Jay knows his Joes.
Check this out. Iron Fist and Luke Cage versus Ryu and Ken from Street Fighter.
What's happening with G.I. Joe? Oh, wait a minute. This is a Royal Rumble?
Versus Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow from G.I. Joe. And if you want to throw it in, if you want to go the video game route again and you want to talk about Street Fighter, why don't you throw in Sub-Zero and Scorpion for Mortal Kombat? Just think about Iron Fist and Luke Cage.
You got crazy with this. You had fun with this.
You know, think about Ryu and Ken. Hadouken, throwing something at Cage, and it just doesn't hurt him because of his steel skin. And then Iron Fist.
You said Cage and Daredevil, right?
Iron Fist. And Iron Fist channeling
Power
his chi. And then fighting against Ryu and Ken. And then you throw in Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, two of the most badass ninjas known to men,
universe,
who could probably wipe out the hands, both of them together. And then if you want to throw in some more gruesome and brutality, you throw in Scorpion and Sub-Zero, also two badass ninjas, but now they have powers to kind of rival that of Ryu and Ken.
Yeah.
I think that would be an amazing. I don't know if it'd be a video game fight. I don't know if that could be something animated. But I just think that could be so badass. Just seeing like basically a bunch of ninjas and Cage, pretty much.
Well, see, that's the interesting thing because you say like a bunch of ninjas,
and he's
Cage.
a brawler. He's a brawler.
Yeah,
but he's got the impenetrable skin, so like
he can be slower.
The weapons,
okay.
the shurikens, the katanas, they can't do anything to him.
What would the blasts do though?
That's a good question.
And if you freeze Luke Cage, could you hurt him after that?
Would Sub-Zero's blast be able to freeze his skin?
Scorpion's things wouldn't go through him
unless it's something. Maybe it's like a magical, depending on the world that he comes from. Maybe it doesn't. It defies the laws of physics and can break the skin of Cage. We don't know, but I think the idea of thinking about a giant battle before those four groups, I think would be absolutely insane. So that's the first one. When you started talking about that,
that was the first thing that came to mind.
It was like Luke Cage and Iron Fist versus Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. Then I'm like, but if I have to do that, if we're talking about other realms other than comic books and movies,
those two realms are very similar. Yeah,
I said, well, why not Ryu and Ken?
Yeah,
because that'd be cool too. Because I'd like to see Ryu and Iron Fist go at it. Then I'm like, well, if you're gonna throw video games in there, why not Sub-Zero and Scorpion? Another set of ninjas from a little bit more of a brutal game other than Street Fighter.
Yeah.
So I think you have just like the different tiers of the brutality and violence where I think, for lack of a better term, Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow for the most part are very honorable ninjas, where I think that the next tier you have Iron Fist and Luke Cage, but I think they can also kind of be like, shades of gray. But then you throw like Ryu and Ken in there, and then Scorpion and Sub-Zero, who are like, I say the other end of the spectrum, just like bloodthirsty killers.
Who do you think would win?
That is a great question. I think if we include Sub-Zero and Scorpion, I think they take it just for their powers alone. But if we're talking just a fight, I want to give it to Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes.
Really?
I think that's who would take it.
You think they'd beat on Luke Cage?
I think so. I think they'd find a way.
Really?
I think they'd find a way.
It's interesting.
I think they're tenacious enough, and I think they're skilled enough to.
Maybe use the environment somehow.
I think they're the best ninjas in any realm of fiction. That, in my opinion, comic books, video games.
It's not the Karate Kid.
No. Quick Kick maybe, but that's another G.I. Joe reference. But that's my number one.
Yeah,
so
this was good.
I think this was a cool area of discussion.
Something different.
Yeah, for those listening, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for Your Geek. Let us know your picks. Who would you pick? What 2 or 5 or 15 characters would you like to see fight each other?
And we know what we got coming up for the next show.
Oh, do we? KB, why don't you give him a preview of?
So, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 coming out this Friday, the 19th. So Jay Free and I will be playing the game just hours before we record the show, so we can get our first reactions.
Yeah, well, our hands-on first reactions.
And Jay Free has never used the Switch, so we'll get some reaction on that.
And we can talk about the Switch a little bit because apparently they're coming out with the Switch Lite.
Yep.
And maybe we can talk about that a little bit next week too.
Yeah. So
it'll be a little bit more of it'll have a video game slant, but it's still going to be a superhero-based video game. So it kind of falls in the realm of two different areas of geekery.
Yeah, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 is one we've been waiting for. One a lot of people have been waiting for. So.
We'll see. Well, I don't know how many characters we'll have unlocked.
I don't know. I'm not even.
But we're gonna pick it up and we're gonna go through that, and I think you'll get our first reactions. And I'll be as mentioned, I'll be playing it on the Switch. Is it coming out for other?
No,
it's just the
not
Switch.
Yet. I mean, I'm sure if it does well, I'm sure they'll probably port it to other systems, but usually doesn't work that way.
So basically you're saying is if I really enjoy this game, it's gonna force me to go out and buy a Switch.
I can always come over.
Okay.
Switch is easy enough to move around.
That makes me a little bit more. I don't want to be spending the money, but maybe when the Switch Lite comes out, and if I don't want to dock it.
Yeah. Good portable game.
Yeah. Well, thanks for previewing that, KB. So next week,
check that out.
First impressions of Ultimate Alliance 3. Until then, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, Free Your Geek. Follow our website, jfreethegeek.com. Follow our friends at 4041 Media, 4041media.com. For listeners, by listeners. And KB, anything else you want to add?
No, just this was a great show, man.
Yeah,
I
it was
like
fun.
doing this. Something different.
And again, feel free to reach out to us on our Facebook page or
tell
any
us
of our
your verses.
socials. Yeah, what was some of your verses that you'd want to see? But until then,
get your geek on.
Get your geek on. Goodbye, everybody.
Ciao.
Ciao.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.